What is your daily routine like?
So it varies a little bit over the course of the week, but most days I usually wake up somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30, usually in time for the first meeting. And then I usually have meetings till about starting around 9:30 a.m. to about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I try to not have meetings in the afternoon. And so I do try and cap it where I have some block of hours in the afternoon where I don't have meetings. Some exceptions are Wednesdays, which I try to not have any meetings on so that I have the whole day to do, whether it's one big thing that I want to do, or even if it is a whole bunch of little things. I like having the time where there aren't these external constraints and blocks that are placed on my calendar, and I just can decide how I want to spend the day. And the other exception is Tuesdays, where I tend to have above average meetings that go a little bit later in the day. But that's roughly it for the week. And then the weekend is free form. I do whatever I feel like doing. Yeah.
What's your daily routine like?
During COVID or normal?
Either one, you're willing to.
You know, most of it's spent on, like most of us, I assume, is spent on Zoom meetings, right? One Zoom meeting after the next. But if you want, yeah, I mean, I think like a normal faculty member, there's different types of Zoom meetings. So there's obviously the meetings with my PhD students, which I try to meet with all my PhD students. I schedule an hour every week for each one of them. And so I did 2 of those this morning, you know, talking to actually they're master's students, so let's say grad student meetings rather than PhD student meetings. Then there's class, obviously, which I'm now teaching Monday, Wednesday afternoon. So that we had canceled, all last week was canceled at UT, plus even Monday was canceled. So I'll be teaching my first class since a week and a half ago, tomorrow on Wednesday. So, and, you know, so for undergrad, I teach, that was my fall class. I teach an undergraduate class on information retrieval, which I happened to create 20 years ago or something, and just been continuing to teach since there's no one else to really do it here. And that's like 50 undergrads. But this year I'm doing a grounded NLP seminar. I don't know if you happen to see this thing. I've been doing it for 3 years since Greg Durrett came and took over my grad NLP class. So I only have 10 people in there this year. I had like 30 the first year and then like 20 last year anyway, I guess, because it's not as novel. And plus we're hiring a lot of faculty, and so I have more people to compete with. So, you know, that's part of my time. Then, of course, there's faculty meeting stuff. So Peter Stone and I are co-chairing our faculty recruiting meeting. So suffice it to say that causes a fair number of meetings. We're sort of done with that now because we've made all our invites and everything scheduled. So that job's sort of done now. And then there's reading groups, you know, where we read papers. So I have like 4 of those now. So there's the grounded language one, which I've been doing for more than a decade, 15 years now or whatever. We have actually, this meeting started probably in the very early 90s, called NLL, Natural Language Learning. And we read papers about applying machine learning to natural language. And that died for a while, but then we started up. So now all the language people at UT come to that meeting, and that's every other week, and we read papers and discuss them. Yeah. I've seen all 4 of them on your webpage, but yeah. Yeah. So then then now I think maybe you don't even know this part of my life, but I've always been interested in connection between language and software, right? So I used to do a lot of work in semantic parsing, which sometimes I described as automatic translation between human language and computer language, right? So I've done language to code before, but now I'm actually doing code to language stuff. We're actually learning we had an ACL paper last summer. When I say we, this is joint with a husband-wife pair where she's a computational linguist in our linguistics department, Jesse Lee, and he's a software engineering person in our ECE department, Milos Gligovic, if I'm saying his Serbian name properly. They happen to be married, and they also have a little 3-year-old, and that's the house I stayed at for the end of last week. So I got to know their 3-year-old. But there was actually a workshop on natural language and software engineering at AAAI a couple of years ago, and they brought their baby, which was only like 1 at that time, obviously. And I said, this baby is a perfect example of what this workshop is trying to do. We're trying to marry software engineering to natural language processing and produce something wonderful and amazing. Okay. So what's the meeting XAI, obviously. So we have a bi-weekly explainable AI meeting where we read papers about explainable AI. So that was a bi-weekly, so that's 2 meetings every week. I don't know, and those are all Zoom calls now. So that's between some mix of all of these activities, so it takes up my day.
What's your daily routine like?
It varies quite a bit from day to day. So I've tried to block off Mondays as kind of like my own day to do research. I try not to have any meetings. I try not to make any commitments about what I'm going to do, and I leave it open to just kind of like let the inspiration take me where I want to go. I come in and say, what do I want to work on? And I work on that. The rest of my week is much more structured. I tend to have lots of meetings and advising and etc. stuff. And then on Fridays, when it's not COVID times, I would generally go to Mila and have like the university day there. That's obviously changed since COVID has hit, but it still is kind of like more student interactions than other days.
I see. That sounds like a fun week. Is any of this like a no meeting day from your team's perspective?
From the team's perspective, we'll sometimes have no meetings weeks, but as far as I know, we don't have like a coordinated day of that. That might be a good idea.
What is your daily routine like?
My daily routine is very, very boring. So I wake up around, let's say 8 or 9, depending on your idea how I feel like in the morning. I grab my coffee. Yeah, that's actually the one thing is that one of the things that I started to do is to try to make espresso every morning myself. And then that's been going well since the pandemic started. So I have that coffee and then check some emails, and then during the day is pretty usual. I often have one-on-one meetings with my students. That's like 80% of all my meetings. So that part I enjoy a lot. And then one thing I noticed during the pandemic is that we are actually having more talks than usual. I think there is the tendency that everyone is inviting others much more easily, and also people accept the invitations much more casually just because it's possible, right? Or they're more easy to do so. So there are always some talks that I need to attend or that I want to attend. So that takes up a lot of my time. And then I actually started to have dinner quite early, like the 5:30 p.m. and I already have my dinner. And because of pandemic again, I started to cook quite a bit. So I started preparing for my meal, I don't know, like 4:30 or so, while I'm actually having meetings with my students or listening to some of the talks. And after that, this is a weird habit I recently started to have, is to have a half an hour to an hour of nap after my dinner, because dinner is so early. And then I wake up again and then, start checking some emails or reading some papers or books, or just, surfing around, goofing around for another couple of the hours before I say that, okay, I've done my share of my work today. So I'm going to watch something on Netflix or whatnot and then go to bed. Very, very boring, I gotta say, yes.
But interesting that you take a nap after dinner. I was almost half expecting you to say nap after lunch, which would sort of split your day into half, but interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. I only started to doing so like last summer. So during the pandemic, because my dinner time was increasingly becoming earlier and earlier. And then I noticed that after dinner, I tend to eat, pretty heavy dinner. And then there's that, like, I don't know, 4 to 5 hours that is before I actually go to bed and call it a day. What that means is that it's actually pretty many hours. So I decided that okay, I need to take some rest. But then taking a nap after dinner turned out to be not too bad at all.
Interesting. What is your daily routine like?
Daily routine, yeah, usually, I mean, depends on many things. Like if you have deadlines, no deadlines, or it's a normal day. But on average, it's basically, the day starts with cell phone. I check my emails, my messages. I check news and like social media and those types of things. And I used to respond to emails, but I stopped doing that because So sometimes you didn't have like, you don't have like good sleep, and so I basically I stopped doing emails right after I wake up. So I wait for a couple hours so I can think, and then I send emails. So so that's I check my cell phone messages and so on, and then I take a shower and breakfast. And at some point I decided to work out in the morning, but I realized I'm not good at that. So I do the workout in the afternoon. So that's removed from my daily schedule. And after breakfast I start work. And before the pandemic I drove for about half an hour, and now it's just I sit at my desk and join the meetings, and mostly it's like meetings back to back, and some days I leave some time for myself, so to read papers, to mostly it's for reading, and and then it's lunchtime. And then again, the meetings start, like back-to-back meetings, until in the afternoon. I usually work out some for 30 minutes, like 45 minutes. It's not a heavy workout, just like light workout. And and then I after workout is basically reading news, like sometimes watching movies, having dinner, and that's like normal. That's a routine for a normal day. But some days are like hectic. Sometimes some days are more relaxed, and that's on average it looks like that.
What's your daily routine like?
It varies. This semester, I'm teaching a large undergrad class. So on Tuesday, Thursdays, part of my day has to do with that. Some of the other days, it's research meetings. We had a faculty candidate today, so meeting for that. Just kind of depends on the day. I try to leave at least part of one day a week for being able to do more focused work without distractions, but it's very variable.
What is your daily routine like?
Daily routine: wake up, make porridge for the family, drop my daughter off to school, to sort of collapse my whole life into a day. There's various types of meeting with people. The sort of I love brainstorming meetings, so I might sort of have a 30-minute meeting with a half-hour slot at the end, a kind of over buffer slot if we need to really one-on-one kind of nail something down. And it's been really interesting doing that fully remotely. I thought I would use the whiteboard a lot. We don't as much, but we do an awful lot of typing into a shared document or typing into the chat, and that's kind of cool because it's super precise. So the stuff I'm working on at the moment is a lot to do with programming language design, compilers, and so on. So you can really just sort of tap in a couple of lines of code, tap it back, and it's been really interesting to see that. So daily routine is some sort of brainstorming meetings, just trying to solve problems, trying to figure out, project directions. And then luckily I'm still in the position where I get to write some code sometimes, right? So there's, a bunch of code review, and occasionally there are some things that when you're old and experienced, you can just do. It's easier to explain with a small prototype than maybe with a lot of whiteboarding or something. So I might try and do sort of a quick proof of concept or toy example, and say, right, this is the kind of idea, and then we can discuss that. So I'm really lucky to have that, sort of highly technical part of my day still.
Fascinating. What's, just out of curiosity, what language do you love prototyping in?
Oh, wow. I'm beginning to have opinions about Python style. So that's definitely a level I've passed this year. I've traditionally been, I still love it when I get to do C++. It's almost never the right choice for a quick prototype. But for example, if you want to prove something about maybe why Python is slow, you might have to prototype a C++ implementation of the same thing and just check, right? Is it inherently slow or is it a Python thing? I've been doing a lot of Julia recently. I really enjoy that. That's,
Yeah, I've been hearing more and more machine learning people talk about Julia.
Yeah, no, Julia's really exciting. It's so funny because, I tried to kick a MATLAB habit for a long, long time. And I guess 10 years ago, I tried to switch to Python, and I really was kind of stuck with the MATLAB. But Julia was enough it was sort of beautiful enough that I easily switched over. And then I've been, in the last couple of years, I've been doing quite a bit of Haskell, which is fun. I think Haskell's kind of like the Latin of programming languages. Everybody kind of wishes they knew it, but no one is actually going to be bothered to do it. But I'm working with some real Haskell experts. I mean, Simon Peyton Jones, who's a sort of god of programming languages and an inventor of Haskell. So that's what they use. That's what makes them most productive. So I need to learn it to catch up.
Fascinating. What's your daily routine like?
Right now with COVID, daily routine. I wake up later than usual because I no longer have to commute. And I drink coffee and I look at my email. My inbox this past year is every day. I have this thing where I want my inbox to be zero. I don't know if a lot of people can relate, but I can't go to bed if I have like pending emails that I need to respond to. But that I had to not do that anymore because my inbox now is like 100 emails every morning that all need responding because of CVPR 2021. So I do that. I try to go through emails, try to respond to things. And then I start with work. I try to code as much as possible, run experiments. I do a lot of first author work. So I want half my day to be devoted to that, the other half be in the projects that I'm more of an advisor role. I work with other people, try to meet with them to see if they want to chat about anything. And that I think that gets me to like 5 to 6 p.m. Of course, there's break in between for lunch. And then I try really hard to have a clean stop for life after that.
Makes sense. And for people who may not have caught the context early on, you were one of the program chairs of CVPR 2021, hence the 100 emails that you're getting every day about CVPR.
Correct.
And the Twitter notifications, which is a modern phenomenon where people just go, hey, CVPR, like as if it's tech support. I find that amusing.
I know. I responded to somebody today. I was like, if you really want our help, you have to email us and not like tag me on a tweet. That's not how it works.
Yeah. And what's your daily routine like?
So I wake up in the morning like most people, and then I mostly just come and sit here on this table while I make breakfast, depending on whether I have an early morning meeting or not. So sometimes if the meeting is like within 15 minutes of waking up, then I just show up here like this morning. But usually I have some time and then I make breakfast and eat breakfast and then come here and then stay here, then make lunch, have lunch. Sometimes, have lunch here as well. And then, in the evening, when the day is over, then I go out for a walk with my husband or like go for a workout, a run or something. And then after that, read a book, eat some dinner, and fall asleep.
What is your daily routine like?
So I guess I only know the pandemic routine now. I guess. So we used to have a different daily routine, but I think in the pandemic daily routine, we've been we wake up very early. My wife wakes up even earlier than me, and she's also a faculty member. And so we wake up early, and oftentimes I go for a walk, and then basically in front of the computers, so the Zooms and so on. Yeah, and then typically we also get I think, in fact, when I first came to US, I never understood how people can eat at 6 o'clock, because growing up in India, I would eat like 8 o'clock or something. Now we have become, we actually have dinner by like 5:36, and so it's generally like an earlier thing. And I think during pandemic, I mean, normally there used to be all these student meetings. They're all now done on Zoom, and then I have like many different things like a Slacks and the WhatsApps, etc. So you're always constantly in touch. So yeah, that's how the routine is updated.
Do you feel you're almost too much in touch? There are too many ways of getting in touch with people, and there's too many things.
I do think so. I mean, again, I don't know. I mean, you're young. I'm quite old, and so I've seen the.
I'm not that young.
I don't know. You look much younger than me at any rate. So when I first came, and I guess when I was in grad school is when we started having email, etc. I think, and so you would start. I mean, when I first came to US, I mean, I would just write letters like once in, 15 days or something to my parents, and then once in a while you send mail, and then you sort of live in front of each other. Now it's a very different thing because you're constantly in touch with everybody. I'm not necessarily one of those people who think that old days were much better. It's just different. There's a very different kind of a dynamic. As I was saying, I mean, it's like over the pandemic, I mean, I've seen my students more, and I think I have had less interrupted meetings. I mean, I'm right now in my office, and it's very close to the chair's office. The chair would come and knock on the door every once in a while and talk, even in the middle of the meetings. That wouldn't happen when you are on a Zoom meeting, because it's like basically we used to have these from different places. So in a way, you have more touch, but it's also that there are certain things that I guess, especially in interpersonal things, not necessarily research. Research is probably fine by Zoom, I think, but interpersonal things, certainly being in front, there are certain types of things that you get. And the fact that we spend so much time on all these things sort of reduces the time for having nothing and just talking to somebody. So yeah, interesting.
Makes sense. What's your daily routine like?
So wake up whenever my kid wakes up. I don't need to set an alarm. We usually do breakfast and a little bit of playing in the morning. Then his dad takes him to school. We've been lucky that he can go to school. He's actually been going to school since June, and so far so good. They seem very careful about COVID guidelines, and so far they only had to close once, but it was close to winter break anyway. So I have the luxury of actually having time to work. So then my husband picks up our kid, and from 5 to 8, from 5 to 8 is playtime and dinner time. Then there's bath time, and little guy goes to sleep around 9, and then there's a little bit more work time. So pretty normal. I know not everyone has that luxury. Some people's kids don't go to school, so.
And have the schools recently reopened, or have they been open for a while?
Yeah, they reopened in June of last year. And so they've been open pretty continuously, except for 3 days. I think they closed on December 18th, but it was close to winter break anyway. They were closed between March and June. But.
What's your daily routine like?
What's my daily routine? Oh, so I guess I wake up quite early, usually about 4 a.m. And then I just do a bit of work. I like to work in the morning, and then I make a coffee first, then I work, and then at some point I start making porridge for my twins because they like that, and then then I sometimes go jogging. not quite as often as I'd like, but sometimes go jogging in the morning and then shower, meetings, and yeah, and then meetings. Get a certain amount of time in there to do a little bit of other kinds of work, and then evening comes, we make dinner, and yeah. So it's in COVID, it's been interesting because it's all been at home. So I kind of miss my normal walk to work, but I have to say I kind of like it. I've gotten used to living here at home and working here, so I don't know. I'm one of those people that are maybe not that looking forward to the end of this.
I know such people. I know
Yeah.
such people who are not looking forward to the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like we're talking about this, Joel and I were talking about this, that it's kind of, my personality is very much made for this. I'm not really that very much of a social person. I don't really miss kind of going out to big events and things like that. What I consider fun are more like sort of solitary activities and stuff like that. So it really hasn't, hindered my enjoyment of life that much, actually. It's just kind of giving me more opportunities, in fact, the kinds of things I like to do. So yeah.
Makes sense. If you're up at 4, do you also crash early?
Yeah, I do. I'm often in bed at around 9:30. It depends. In the summertime, it gets harder to go to sleep when it's still light out. So I tend to shift a little bit later. But yeah, I pretty early, and then pretty early to bed too. Yeah, I think it evolved. I'm just naturally a morning person, but I think it also evolved from like just procrastinating as much as possible. And so I would like do things the morning before they're due in university. And so yeah, that was it's kind of where it probably came from. Yeah.
What's your daily routine like?
I specifically pushed back. I used to have more early morning meetings pre-pandemic, but I decided in this year to have slightly later starts. So I pushed everything back a little bit. So for the most part, my days don't start until like 10. And so that means that I don't set an alarm, and I wake up whenever my body decides it's time to wake up. And then I check Slack to make sure nothing burnt down, and then slowly go downstairs, make coffee, and and then I sit on the couch and drink my coffee while scrolling TikTok for a little bit, and then head up to work. So TikTok is probably going to be a recurring theme in this discussion. I've decided it is the best social media platform in existence, and so so that's how I spend my morning. It's some combination of coffee, breakfast, and TikTok scrolling. I also check to make sure that nothing is burnt down. I look at Slack and emails to make sure things are okay. But yeah,
forget the rest of your day. Tell me more about TikTok. Like, what's going
seriously? Here's the thing about TikTok. Okay, I've got like a lot of thoughts on TikTok, but from like a slight AI person perspective, part of what I think is fascinating about it is that it's a totally different model. So you can follow people. Like I follow some friends. I'll out maybe like Yejin is on TikTok. She doesn't really post, but she follows me, and so we send each other TikToks back and forth. And then because of the messages being sent, or like also just the amount of time you spend watching. So if you watch a video more than once, like all these sort of little subconscious habits, the algorithm caters to you. And so it's this very wonderfully passive experience where you're just like, oh, it turns out that apparently I spend a little bit longer watching these types of videos, and then I just get more of that. I didn't have to really search for it. And so and then based off your sharing preferences. So I send her fancy cocktail making TikToks and things like this. And then you get even fancier cocktail making TikToks, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Or really pretty coffees. We were like, I had no idea you could make a coffee that was that pretty. So so it's like this really nice escape and to sort of all these other parts of people's lives. There's this really cool, I can do this for the entire hour, so I will stop, but like on a nerdy side for a second, there's several scientists and other workers down at the South Pole who have TikToks. And so they just document things in their lives, and then people ask them questions, and then they go and answer them. So they're like, I mean, some of them are like silly things. They're like, wait a second, if it's negative 80 degrees outside, how long does it take for a cup of water to freeze? He's like, I don't know. So he like fills up a cup of water and goes and puts it outside. And then like, or like the sun has set now, which means it's set for like 6 months. And so like, what is it like to like watch your final sunset? And then like, and so anyway, so it's like this kind of thing where it's like I'm teleported into for a brief moment into some very totally different part of the world. There's nothing work related. It's just sort of fun. And no, I don't see a lot of people dancing, though that isn't the classic TikTok experience.
Fascinating. I particularly like the fact that you can almost pseudo run experiments by asking others to, in a place that you wouldn't normally have access to. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very cool little ecosystem. So anyway, I'm not not a paid sponsorship by but if ByteDance, if you're interested, I think there's some cool multimodal research we could be doing there. I'm sure they watch this.
Yeah, we don't have that much reach. What is your daily routine like?
So in the morning, I always go for a walk to get coffee. We have a great coffee spot down the street, and we always go and I get an Americano with oat milk and walk back. So I'm one of my few hobbies is that I'm trying to learn Spanish very slowly. So I listen to the news in Spanish, which is about the level I can understand. I really want to get to more interesting podcasts, but at the moment it's just the news. So then I come home. My group normally does a stand-up meeting in the morning. So around 10 o'clock, we do a half-hour meeting. We go around and everyone kind of says what they're working on. We all talk about things. Depending on the day, I then either have a bunch more meetings, or if I try to keep one day or so a week that I can work on my own projects. If I'm doing that, I kind of lower my standing desk and code on some things. If I'm lucky, I'll have some time to make lunch or grab lunch at work. And then the afternoon, either I guess I'll work until the early evening. If it's in the winter, I like to go for a run before it gets too dark. Otherwise, I stick around and through that. And then I don't have kids or anything, so in the evening, cook, hang out with my partner, read a book, sort of thing. Yeah.
Interesting. The Spanish podcast and the Spanish news sounds particularly interesting. Do you listen to contemporary American news, or are you listening to news from another countries? Like the American news would allow you to ground it into events that presumably you're already aware of.
Yeah, that's true. So I normally listen to the Telemundo afternoon news podcast. So they kind of stream their television news. It tends to be American news, but with a kind of Latin American focus. So they'll cover American stories, but if there's a hurricane, or if there's an election, or if there's even just kind of fun event, or they'll often do like human interest stories like dance troupe in Mexico or something. So it's kind of fun as well.
Fascinating. What's your daily routine like?
Yeah, so the front half is super stable, then the back half is sort of wild. I get up in the morning with my spouse at about 6:30 a.m. because she goes off to work at around 7. And then I end up getting to work at about 8. And by getting to work, I mean, I guess I sit in this chair, right? In the old times, I would also go in with her carpool, so I'd be there at like 7, which is a really beautiful time to try to get some work done because, nobody's bothering you at 7:30 a.m. in an office. But yeah, then I go through emails and try to figure out what I'm going to do for the day. Some of it's pre-planned from the day before, and some of it's new arrivals that I've forgotten about that are need to get squeezed in somewhere. So planning out the day first and then chugging through.
What's your daily routine like?
It depends a bit on the day. So in DeepMind, we have a kind of no meeting philosophy on Thursdays. So that day was probably a bit of a different routine, although inevitably some meetings do go there. Otherwise, and another factor is that we've got more offices around the world and more collaborators in North America. So it inevitably means that like from early afternoon, that's when there's really meetings stacking up. So usually I have a couple of hours free, at least in the morning, without meetings. Yeah, I don't know if other people know, but we also, DeepMind generally tries to start at 10, at least when we were in the office. That was kind of the philosophy, and then maybe work a bit later. So there's various reasons for that, but I think I've probably continued with that routine. But I'm not really a morning person, but I've tried to use that morning time to really do some outdoor things or exercise, especially because, I don't think I really enjoy being locked in an apartment for long periods like we've all been over the last year. So that's been the time when I've really tried to force myself to get out and either just walk outside or run. I'm trying to get better at swimming. So just do anything like that. So I try and do that until about 10. Then hopefully a couple of hours of my own like experiments, usually a mixture of like thinking about organizing initiatives, meetings, reading papers, writing code and running experiments. I really enjoy doing that. And then meetings usually start, unless it's Thursday. And then they go on till about 6 or 7 p.m. in UK time. That's usually, I try not to go beyond 7. So that's it. It also depends. I mean, it also depends a bit on if I'm like, to what extent I'm having a period of like real hard work where I got my enthusiasm and also just general flow of research, I think for everyone goes in waves. So there's no way I could work like really flat out all year. So there's times when I just do like essentially what feels like my job. And there are other times when I'm like totally impassioned about getting something done. And then I'll just work like really like funny hours and, whenever, because I'm just like so interested in doing it. So it's a bit of both. Yeah.
What's your daily routine like?
So, okay, so I wake up around 6, get my kids ready for school, I have breakfast by 8:30, then drop off my sort of son to school, get back home at 9:30, and then I start work at 9:30 in the morning, and that goes on till sort of 6 in the evening, with a few breaks in the middle somewhere, and lots of very exciting work, and meeting and collaborating with a number of very passionate and excited colleagues. And that's where I get the energy. I mean, the people that you work with, they inform how you feel about your work and how about your life. And I think I'm particularly very fortunate with the colleagues I have. So that's what, so sort of end working at 5:30, 6 in the evening, sort of spend time with the family, and then get kids to bed by 9, and then spend a few hours sort of relaxing and sort of working more, and then off to bed by, I think, 11. Sometimes it's like midnight, but mostly sort of 11 o'clock, between 11 o'clock and midnight.
What's your daily routine like?
Well, like everybody, there's quite a bit of change, but there's a few things which are normal for me. We talked about lunch and being there. I also have dinner with my family every day. That's kind of a strong block for me. And sometimes there are work meetings that want to bleed into dinner time, but I'm pretty aggressive at blocking those times. I like to work out in the mornings. And so, yeah, so it's basically start that way. My work schedule usually has a lot of meetings during the day, but I try to block those times.
What is a typical day in your life like? What is your daily routine like?
Okay, so there's a couple ways to answer that question, but let me answer it this way. So first off, there is no typical day, right? Every day is different because basically we're running around and solving problems. But there's another way to answer the question. Let me just sort of take it at face value. There's what life is like when we aren't in the middle of the pandemic, and there's what life is like when we are in the middle of the pandemic. And right now we're in the middle of a pandemic, light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still dealing with that. So right now in the pandemic world, I spend a lot of time in meetings. I'm definitely overscheduled. There's a lot of, we got to get together for this meeting, get together for this meeting. I would show you my calendar, but I don't want to scare you. But looking at just this week, there's not a single free spot on my calendar until tomorrow afternoon. I have my first meetings between 7:30 and 8 a.m. Today, my last meeting will end at 6 p.m. So there's lots and lots of meetings. When we aren't in the middle of a pandemic, I still have lots of meetings, but many of them are less scheduled. So there's always a fire to put out. There's always an interesting thing to think about. There's always a quick meeting someone wants to have. And so my free space is sort of filled up with lots of interesting conversations, sometimes about research and professor side of my life, and sometimes about administration and the dean side of my life. So a typical day is there's some set of problems to solve, and it takes people getting together to solve them. And so we get together and we do it.
What's your daily routine like?
Meetings and coffee, and some more work in the evening.
Meetings and coffee. I sense a theme already.
Sometimes cocktail in the evening.